I thought I was just making another ordinary Tuesday dinner when my whole world shattered with a single phone call. The wooden spoon was still dripping marinara sauce when I heard Amanda's voice cut through the kitchen speaker, like a blade through silk. "We're leaving tomorrow, Mom. Derek and I are moving to Europe permanently, and I've already sold your beach house. The papers are signed, the deal is done, and frankly, you should have seen this coming." The line went dead before I could even catch my breath. I stood there frozen watching red sauce drip onto my white tile floor as 30 years of memories and trust crumbled in 88 devastating words. 3 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life, though I had no way of knowing it at the time. I was scheduled for gallbladder surgery. Nothing major, but at 67, any surgery feels significant. Amanda swept into my hospital room like a guardian angel carrying homemade chicken soup in a thermos and an overnight bag packed with magazines and fuzzy slippers. "Mom, you can't be worrying about bills and paperwork while you're recovering," she said, smoothing my hospital blanket with gentle hands. "Let me handle everything for a few weeks, just temporarily until you're back on your feet." The power of attorney papers appeared the next morning, neatly typed and professional. Amanda's explanation seemed so reasonable, so caring. "It's just a precaution in case you need someone to sign checks or handle insurance claims while you're healing." What started as temporary became permanent when I saw how efficiently Amanda managed everything. She organized my scattered bills into neat folders, set up automatic payments for utilities, and even negotiated a better rate with my insurance company. For the first time in years, my financial life felt organized and stress-free. The beach house in Malibu had been my sanctuary since inheriting it from my mother, Margaret, 15 years earlier. The weathered cedar cottage sat just 50 yards from the Pacific, its wraparound porch facing the endless horizon, where my mother and I had watched countless sunsets together. Margaret had bought the property in 1972 with money from my father's life insurance, and every summer of my childhood was spent building sandcastles and collecting shells along that private stretch of beach. Amanda knew how much the place meant to me. She had spent her own childhood summers there, learning to swim in the gentle waves and hosting elaborate tea parties for her dolls on the sun-warmed deck. When she offered to help maintain the property, driving down from Los Angeles twice a month to check on things, I felt grateful for her attention. "You shouldn't be making that drive at your age, Mom," Amanda would say, keys already in hand. "The coastal highway is getting more dangerous every year. Let Derek and me handle the upkeep. We love spending time there anyway." Derek, my son-in-law of 5 years, worked in real estate development and seemed to understand property management. He would return from their weekend visits with detailed reports about roof repairs, garden maintenance, and security updates. Everything sounded so professional, so responsible. But over the past 6 months, something had shifted. Amanda's visits to my main residence in Pasadena became shorter and more focused on paperwork. She would arrive with new documents for me to sign, explaining them quickly, before moving on to the next item. "Just updating your insurance beneficiaries, Mom. Standard stuff. Derek says it's important to keep everything current." Phone calls that used to last an hour now ended abruptly when I walked into rooms. Amanda's laughter would cut off mid-sentence, replaced by urgent whispers about calling you back later. When I asked about these mysterious conversations, she brushed off my concerns with patronizing smiles. "Oh, Mom, you worry too much. It's just business calls. Real estate never sleeps, you know." Derek's attitude toward me had grown increasingly cold during family gatherings. Where he once asked about my health and shared stories about his construction projects, now he barely acknowledged my presence. At Amanda's birthday dinner last spring, I caught him checking his watch repeatedly while I told a story about Amanda's childhood, his impatience radiating across the restaurant table. The most unsettling change was Amanda's subtle comments about my capability. "Are you sure you remember taking your medications, Mom? Maybe we should set up one of those pill organizers with the days of the week." Or, "You seem confused about what we discussed yesterday. Are you feeling all right?" I started questioning my own memory, wondering if age was catching up with me faster than I wanted to admit. but deep down, a small voice whispered that something was terribly wrong. The voice grew louder 3 weeks before the devastating phone call when I decided to surprise Amanda by cleaning her old bedroom. She had been staying at my house more frequently, claiming her apartment lease was up, and she was between places while house hunting with Derek. Hidden beneath a stack of outdated magazines in her nightstand drawer, I found a manila folder containing documents that made my blood run cold. Property management contracts, rental agreements, and correspondence with tenants, all bearing the address of my beach house. But these weren't documents about maintaining the property. They were business records showing that someone had been renting out my home for over a year. The papers were signed Amanda Collins, property owner, and showed monthly rental income of $2,400, 12 months of payments, nearly $30,000 with my daughter, listed as the landlord of my own house. My hands trembled as I photographed every page with my phone, then carefully replaced everything exactly as I had found it. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I had discovered. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps Amanda was managing the rental for me and planning to surprise me with the income. Maybe she had been saving the money for property improvements. But the doubt that had been growing for months suddenly crystallized into something much darker. My daughter, the little girl who once promised to take care of me when I got old, was stealing from me in ways I was only beginning to understand. The phone call confirming my worst fears came exactly 72 hours later. My hands shook as I drove the winding Pacific Coast Highway toward Malibu, each curve bringing me closer to what I feared would be confirmation of my daughter's betrayal. The morning fog was just beginning to lift, revealing glimpses of the sparkling ocean that had always brought me peace. Today, even the most beautiful views couldn't calm the storm of dread building in my chest. I expected to find the beach house empty, perhaps with a realtor's sign staked in the sandy front yard. Instead, I discovered something far more complex and heartbreaking. A cheerful yellow Volkswagen sat in the gravel driveway, its bumper decorated with colorful stickers from national parks and beach towns. Children's toys were scattered across the front porch, and wind chimes sang softly in the salt breeze. Before I could process what I was seeing, the front door opened and a young woman emerged, bouncing a toddler on her hip, while a slightly older boy clung to her legs. She looked to be in her early 30s with sun-streaked brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the kind of genuine smile that immediately put people at ease. "Oh, hello there," she called out, approaching my car with friendly curiosity. "Are you looking for someone? I'm Sarah Phillips." I climbed out slowly, my mind racing to make sense of the situation. "I'm Josie Collins. This is my house." Sarah's expression shifted from welcoming to confused then to something approaching alarm. "Your house? But we've been renting this place from Amanda Collins for almost a year now. She told us she inherited it from her mother who passed away last year." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not only had Amanda been collecting rent on my property without my knowledge, but she had told these innocent people that I was dead. My own daughter had killed me off to justify her theft. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding," I managed to say, though my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "I'm very much alive, and this house has been in my family for decades." Sarah's face went pale as she called over her shoulder. "Tom, can you come out here, please? We have a situation." A tall, broad-shouldered man emerged from the house, wiping his hands on a dish towel. His kind eyes and gentle manner reminded me of my late husband, and I could see this was a good family caught in the middle of my daughter's web of lies. "What's going on, honey?" Tom asked, then noticed my distressed expression. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Sarah quickly explained what I had told her, and Tom's face darkened with understanding. "Let me get our lease agreement," he said, disappearing back into the house. While we waited, Sarah invited me to sit on the porch steps where I had spent so many peaceful mornings watching dolphins play in the surf. The irony wasn't lost on me that I now needed permission to sit on my own property. "Amanda seemed so professional when we met her," Sarah said, gently bouncing her toddler daughter. She had business cards for Philip's property management and everything. She said she was moving to Europe and needed reliable tenants to take care of the place. Tom returned with a thick folder of documents. The lease agreement was beautifully printed on official-looking letterhead, complete with corporate logos and legal language. Amanda had signed it as Amanda Collins, property owner, and the monthly rent was listed as $2,400. We pay first of every month. Tom explained, showing me their bank statements on his phone. Amanda always deposits the checks promptly. She even set up automatic withdrawals for utilities and maintenance fees. My daughter hadn't just been stealing from me. She had been running a sophisticated rental scam. I calculated quickly in my head. Nearly $30,000 over the past year, money that should have been mine collected, while Amanda looked me in the eye and claimed the house was sitting empty. "There's something else," Sarah said hesitantly. "Amanda told us last week that she had found a buyer for the house. She gave us 30 days' notice to move out and asked for our last month's rent and security deposit in advance. We paid her $4,800 just 3 days ago." The scope of Amanda's betrayal kept expanding with each revelation. She hadn't just sold the house out from under me, she'd extracted every possible dollar from these innocent tenants before disappearing. "We've been looking for a new place," Tom said, "but the rental market is brutal right now. With 2 kids and our budget, this was honestly a miracle find. We've been so happy here." Looking at their children playing contentedly on the porch that had once been my own playground, I felt a surge of protective anger. These people had done nothing wrong. They had been honest tenants who maintained my property beautifully and treated it with the respect it deserved. Amanda's greed had victimized them just as thoroughly as it had victimized me. "I need to make some phone calls," I told them. "But please don't pack anything yet. I'm going to figure out how to make this right." As I walked back to my car, Tom called out, "Mrs. Collins, for what it's worth, Amanda had us believing she was a successful businesswoman who really cared about this property. She fooled us completely." Sitting in my car overlooking the Pacific, I opened the folder Tom had shown me and studied Amanda's forged documents more carefully. The letterhead for Philip's property management looked completely authentic, and her signature was confident and practiced. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a desperate mistake. My daughter had been planning this elaborate deception for months, possibly years. But there was something else bothering me, something that didn't quite fit with Amanda's story about selling the house. I pulled out my phone and called the Malibu County Assessor's office. "I'm calling to verify recent property sales," I told the clerk. "Can you tell me if there have been any ownership transfers on Ocean View Drive in the past 30 days? After giving them my address and property identification number, I waited nervously for their response. "I'm not showing any recent sales or transfers on that property, ma'am. According to our records, it's still owned by the Margaret Collins Family Trust established in 2008. My mother's trust. I had completely forgotten that when Margaret died, her attorney had suggested keeping the property in the family trust for tax purposes. Amanda knew about the trust structure because she had been present during the estate planning meetings, but clearly she had forgotten this crucial detail when fabricating her sales story. If the house was still held in trust and I was the sole beneficiary and trustee, then Amanda couldn't legally sell it even with power of attorney. Her elaborate scam was about to collapse under the weight of her own greed and carelessness. But first I needed to understand exactly how deep this deception went. The forged rental business, the fake sale, the lies to innocent tenants, it all pointed to something much larger than a simple theft. This was organized fraud on a federal level. I called my longtime family attorney, Harold Brennan, from the beach house parking lot, watching waves crash against the rocks where Amanda and I had once searched for tide pools together. "Harold, it's Josie Collins. I need to see you immediately. Something terrible has happened, and I'm going to need your help to stop it." Harold Brennan's law office in downtown Pasadena had been my family's legal home for over 20 years. The walls were lined with leather-bound law books and photographs of Harold with various judges and political figures, but what I valued most was his reputation for honesty and his genuine care for his clients. When I called requesting an emergency appointment, he cleared his afternoon schedule immediately. "Josie, you look terrible," Harold said as I settled into the familiar burgundy chair across from his massive oak desk. "Tell me everything." I laid out the entire story from Amanda's gradual takeover of my finances to the shocking discovery at the beach house. Harold listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on his yellow legal pad, his expression growing increasingly grim. When I finished, Harold leaned back in his chair and removed his wire-rimmed glasses, cleaning them slowly, while he processed what I had told him. "Josie, I have to ask you something important, and I need you to think carefully before answering. Did you ever execute a power of attorney document giving Amanda control over your finances?" "Of course I did," I replied. "You prepared it yourself 3 years ago, remember, right before my surgery." Harold's frown deepened as he turned to his computer, typing rapidly. "I'm searching our files now, and I'm not finding any power of attorney documents prepared for you in the past 5 years. My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. Amanda brought the papers to the hospital. They looked completely professional." "Describe the attorney who prepared them." "I never met him personally. Amanda said his name was Robert Sterling and that he specialized in elder care law. She said you were too busy with corporate clients to handle something so simple." Harold's face darkened. "Robert Sterling was disbarred 2 years ago for falsifying legal documents and elder abuse. If Amanda used his services, we're looking at criminal fraud, not just family disputes." The room seemed to spin around me as the implications became clear. Not only had Amanda been stealing from me, but she had built her entire scheme on forged legal documents that gave her no actual authority over my affairs. Harold immediately began making phone calls while I sat in stunned silence. First, he contacted my bank to freeze all accounts and review recent transactions. Then he called the title company that handled my mother's trust to verify the beach house ownership status. "The good news is that your property is completely secure," Harold said after hanging up from the title company. "Margaret's trust specifically requires multiple signatures for any asset transfers, including yours and mine as successor trustee. Amanda couldn't have sold that house if she wanted to. But she told the tenants it was sold. She collected their security deposit and last month's rent. That's theft by deception, and since it involves interstate commerce and mail fraud, it's a federal crime." Harold picked up his phone again. "I'm calling Special Agent Kevin Murphy at the FBI. This case is right in his wheelhouse." While Harold arranged meetings with federal investigators, I excused myself to visit the ladies' room, needing a moment to process the magnitude of what was happening. My own daughter wasn't just stealing from me, she was running a criminal enterprise that had victimized multiple people. When I returned to Harold's office, he was hanging up from another call, his expression even more serious than before. "I just spoke with your bank's fraud investigation department," he said. "Amanda has been systematically draining your accounts for over 18 months. The total theft appears to be somewhere around $87,000. The number hit me like a punch to the chest. I had worked my entire adult life to build financial security, saving carefully and investing wisely so I could maintain my independence as I aged. Amanda had stolen not just money but my peace of mind and my ability to trust my own judgment. "There's more," Harold continued. "The bank found evidence that Amanda has been redirecting your mail to a post office box registered under your name, but using her identification. She's been intercepting bank statements, insurance documents, and who knows what else." I thought about all the times over the past year when Amanda had helpfully organized my mail, sorting through stacks of letters and bills with efficient attention. She had convinced me that I was becoming forgetful about paperwork, when in reality she was stealing important documents before I ever saw them. Harold's assistant knocked on the door and announced that Agent Murphy could see us in 2 hours at the FBI field office. The gravity of involving federal law enforcement felt overwhelming, but Harold assured me it was necessary. "Josie, I know this feels like a betrayal beyond imagination," he said gently. "But you need to understand that Amanda has committed serious crimes that extend far beyond family disputes. The FBI specializes in exactly this type of financial exploitation, and they have resources we can't access through civil courts. As we drove to the FBI office, Harold explained what would happen next. Agent Murphy would want complete documentation of Amanda's activities, including the forged power of attorney bank records and evidence from the rental scam. I would need to provide testimony about Amanda's gradual takeover of my finances and any conversations that might prove her intent to defraud me. The most important thing is that you tell the absolute truth about everything, Harold said. Don't minimize Amanda's actions because she's your daughter, and don't blame yourself for trusting her. Criminal investigators are trained to distinguish between normal family financial arrangements and systematic exploitation. The FBI field office was surprisingly welcoming, with Agent Murphy meeting us in a comfortable conference room rather than the stark interrogation rooms I had imagined from television shows. Kevin Murphy was younger than I expected, probably in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a patient manner that immediately put me at ease. Mrs. Collins, I want you to know that elder financial abuse is one of our highest priority investigations, Agent Murphy said as he set up a recording device. Your case has several elements that suggest sophisticated criminal activity rather than simple family disagreements. I spent the next 3 hours walking Agent Murphy through every detail I could remember, starting with Amanda's initial offer to help during my surgery and ending with the shocking phone call announcing the house sale. He asked probing questions about Amanda's access to my accounts, her knowledge of my financial assets, and any statements she had made about my mental capacity. Has Amanda ever suggested that you're becoming confused or forgetful? Agent Murphy asked. Constantly over the past 6 months, she's been telling me I repeat stories, forget conversations, and seem confused about money matters. Agent Murphy nodded grimly. That's a common pattern in these cases. Perpetrators often create evidence of mental incompetence to justify taking control of finances. It also discourages victims from seeking help because they begin to doubt their own perceptions. The interview revealed details I hadn't even realized were significant. Amanda's insistence on accompanying me to doctor's appointments, her suggestion that I stop driving long distances, her gradual isolation of me from longtime friends who might have questioned her financial involvement. We'll need to coordinate with local police on the theft charges, but the mail fraud and interstate commerce violations give us jurisdiction, Agent Murphy explained. I'm also going to connect you with our victim services coordinator. Financial exploitation trauma is real, and you'll need support as we build this case. As Harold and I left the FBI office, I felt emotionally drained but somehow relieved. For months, I had been questioning my own judgment and wondering if I was becoming paranoid about Amanda's behavior. Now I had confirmation that my instincts were correct and that trained professionals took the situation seriously. But the hardest part lay ahead. Agent Murphy had explained that I would need to continue normal contact with Amanda, while they gathered evidence pretending I was unaware of her crimes until they were ready to make arrests. The thought of having conversations with my daughter, knowing what she had done, felt almost impossible. Can I do this, Harold? I asked as we sat in his car outside the federal building. Can I pretend everything is normal when I know she's been systematically destroying my life? You're stronger than you realize, Josie, he replied. And you're not doing this alone. Agent Murphy, our entire legal team, and everyone who cares about justice will be supporting you through this process. That night, I sat on my back patio looking up at the stars and thinking about the little girl Amanda had been. The child who brought me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day, who cried when she accidentally stepped on a spider, who promised to take care of me when I got old. Somewhere along the way, that loving child had become someone I no longer recognized. But I wasn't going to let grief paralyze me. My daughter had made choices that hurt innocent people, including the Phillips family who had done nothing wrong. She needed to face consequences for those choices, not just for my sake, but for everyone she had victimized. Tomorrow I would begin the most difficult performance of my life, pretending to be the naive, trusting mother Amanda believed she could manipulate forever. The hardest phone call of my life began at exactly 9:15 the next morning. I had spent the previous evening rehearsing my performance with Harold and Agent Murphy, practicing the tone of a defeated, broken mother who had accepted her daughter's betrayal. Everything depended on Amanda believing she had won completely. "Amanda, sweetheart," I said when she answered, letting my voice tremble with carefully controlled emotion. "I've been crying all night. I can't believe this is really happening." "Mom, I'm sorry you're upset, but this is for the best." Amanda replied, her tone mixing false sympathy with obvious satisfaction. "You're getting older, and managing that big property was becoming too much for you. Derek and I found an excellent buyer who will take good care of the place." I forced myself to sound confused and helpless. "But I don't understand how you could sell it without telling me. That house has been in our family for so long. You gave me power of attorney, remember you said I should handle these things for you." Amanda's voice carried a hint of impatience, as if explaining simple concepts to a child. "The paperwork was getting too complicated for you to manage anyway. Agent Murphy had wired my phone system the night before, capturing every word of our conversation. I knew that Amanda was digging her legal grave deeper with each lie, but hearing her manipulate me so casually still felt like knives in my chest. "I suppose you're right," I said, letting defeat color my words. "I have been feeling more confused lately. Maybe I'm just not capable of handling these decisions anymore." "That's exactly right, Mom. You should be focused on enjoying your retirement, not worrying about property management and maintenance costs." Amanda's voice brightened with cruel triumph. "Derek says the buyer is paying well above market value, so you'll have plenty of money for anything you need." "How much did they pay?" I asked, playing into her narrative of my financial confusion. "Don't worry about the details. I'll make sure everything is handled properly." Amanda's dismissive tone revealed her assumption that I was too senile to understand complex financial matters. Over the next week, I continued these painful conversations, each one revealing more about Amanda's sophisticated deception. She had apparently been planning this theft for over 2 years, gradually building a case for my mental incompetence while positioning herself as my necessary caregiver. "You know, Mom, I've been thinking you might be happier in one of those nice assisted living communities," she said during our third phone call. "Somewhere with activities and medical support so you don't have to worry about maintaining that big house in Pasadena." The suggestion sent chills down my spine. Agent Murphy had warned me that financial predators often isolated their victims in institutional settings, where access could be controlled completely. Amanda wasn't just stealing my current assets, she was planning to control my entire future. My performance required more than just phone calls. When Amanda announced she was coming by to check on me before their departure to Europe, I had to prepare for face-to-face deception of the most challenging kind. She arrived at my house Saturday afternoon carrying a box of papers and wearing the kind of professional outfit that suggested important business. Derek followed behind her, his usual hostile demeanor replaced by something approaching smug satisfaction. "We brought some final documents for you to sign," Amanda said, settling herself at my kitchen table like she owned the place. "Just cleaning up loose ends before we move abroad." The papers she spread across the table would have transferred control of my remaining bank accounts, my investment portfolios, and my house in Pasadena to Amanda's management. If I had signed them, she would have had legal access to every penny I owned. "I'm not sure I understand all these terms," I said, letting my voice sound uncertain and elderly. "What exactly am I agreeing to?" Derek leaned forward aggressively. "Just standard financial management stuff. Amanda's been handling everything anyway, so this makes it official." "But what if I need money for something? How would I access my accounts?" "You wouldn't need to worry about any of that," Amanda said with practiced patience. "I would handle all your expenses and give you an allowance for personal items. It's much simpler this way." An allowance. My own daughter was planning to reduce me to the status of a dependent child, controlling every aspect of my financial life, while she lived in luxury on my stolen money. I pretended to consider the documents, asking confused questions about terms and procedures. Meanwhile, I was memorizing every detail of their responses for Agent Murphy's investigation. Amanda's explanations revealed that she had been systematically draining my investment accounts for months, moving money through a series of complex transfers designed to obscure the theft. "Where will you and Derek be living in Europe?" I asked, genuinely curious about their escape plans. "We're starting in Italy," Derek answered before Amanda could stop him. "There's a villa in Tuscany that Amanda's been researching. Perfect climate, low cost of living, and very private." Amanda shot him a warning look, clearly uncomfortable with sharing too many details about their future location. But Derek's enthusiasm for their theft-funded lifestyle had made him careless about operational security. "It sounds wonderful," I said wistfully. "I always wanted to visit Italy." "Maybe we'll send you postcards," Derek said with barely concealed mockery. The casual cruelty of that moment nearly broke my carefully maintained performance. This man who had eaten at my table and accepted my generosity for years was now openly laughing at the thought of abandoning me after stealing everything I owned. But I held my composure, signed the fake documents Harold had prepared to replace Amanda's real ones, and maintained my act as the confused, trusting mother until they left. Only when their car disappeared down my street did I allow myself to collapse into my favorite armchair and sob with rage and heartbreak. The fake documents I had signed would be worthless, but Amanda wouldn't discover that until she tried to access the accounts she thought she now controlled. Harold had worked with my bank to create a complex system of alerts and freezes that would prevent any unauthorized transactions while appearing to give Amanda access she expected. Agent Murphy called that evening to review the recording of Amanda and Derek's visit. Their casual discussion of theft, their detailed escape plans, and their obvious preparation for abandoning me provided crucial evidence for the federal case. "They're not just stealing money," Agent Murphy explained. "They're planning to flee the country to avoid prosecution. That adds conspiracy and flight risk charges to their existing crimes." "How long before you arrest them?" I asked. "Soon. We want to catch them in the act of trying to access the accounts you supposedly transferred to Amanda. That way, there's no question about criminal intent." The hardest part of maintaining my deception was the isolation. I couldn't talk to friends or neighbors about what was happening, couldn't seek comfort from my usual support systems, couldn't even enjoy activities that normally brought me peace. Every conversation, every interaction had to be carefully scripted to maintain Amanda's belief that she had successfully manipulated me. But late at night, sitting in my garden, listening to crickets, and thinking about the future, I found strength in knowing that justice was coming. Amanda and Derek had made their choices based on greed and cruelty, believing they could victimize an older woman without consequences. They were about to discover how wrong they were. 2 weeks later, I invited Amanda and Derek for what I called a farewell dinner at the beach house. I told them I wanted to see the property one last time before they left for Europe, and that I needed their help understanding some of the final paperwork about the sale. "It's fitting that we're meeting there," I said during my carefully rehearsed phone call to Amanda. "I want to say goodbye to all those memories before starting this new chapter of my life." Amanda readily agreed, probably seeing this as an opportunity to collect any remaining valuables from the house and to ensure I fully accepted her version of events. She had no way of knowing that Agent Murphy and his team were already in position around the property, or that every word of our dinner conversation would be recorded for federal court. I arrived at the beach house an hour before the scheduled dinner time, needing to prepare myself emotionally for what Agent Murphy called the most crucial performance of your life. The Phillips family had graciously agreed to spend the evening at a local hotel, understanding that their safety and privacy required them to be away from the property during the arrest operation. Standing on the deck where I had played as a child and watched Amanda take her first steps, I felt the weight of what was about to happen. In a few hours, my daughter would be in federal custody, facing years in prison for crimes she believed she'd committed perfectly. The little girl who once built sandcastles on this beach would be led away in handcuffs. But she had made that choice, not me. Every crime, every lie, every moment of cruelty toward innocent people had been her decision. My job now was to ensure that her victims, including the Phillips family, received justice and protection. Amanda and Derek arrived precisely on time, driving a new luxury SUV that I suspected had been purchased with my stolen money. They entered the beach house like they owned it with Derek, immediately walking to the windows to check the ocean view, while Amanda surveyed the interior with a proprietor's eye. "The buyers are getting a real treasure," Amanda said, running her hand along the kitchen counter my father had installed 40 years earlier. "This place has such character. I'm almost sorry to let it go." I served dinner on the deck using my mother's best china and lighting candles as the sun began to set over the Pacific. To any casual observer, we would have looked like a loving family sharing a peaceful final evening together. None of us mentioned the FBI agents positioned in the dunes below or the recording equipment capturing every word. "I brought those final documents we discussed," Amanda said as we finished the main course. "Once you sign these, everything will be properly transferred, and you won't have to worry about managing any of this complexity." The papers she produced would have given her complete control over my remaining assets, including my house in Pasadena and the last of my investment accounts. Her confidence in my compliance was absolute, built on months of successfully manipulating me into questioning my own capabilities. "I'm still not entirely sure I understand what happens to me after all this," I said, maintaining my performance as the confused, dependent mother. "Where will I live? How will I pay for things?" Derek answered with brutal honesty that revealed exactly what they thought of me. "You'll be in a care facility where everything is handled for you. Amanda found a nice place in Arizona where the weather is good, and the staff knows how to manage people with memory problems." Arizona. I let my voice sound puzzled and hurt, but that's so far from everything I know. "Distance is exactly what you need," Amanda said firmly. "Fresh start, new environment, professional care. You've been depending on me too much anyway." The casual way she dismissed 70 years of my life, reducing me to a memory problem that needed professional management, was perhaps more cruel than any of her financial crimes. But it also provided the clear evidence Agent Murphy needed to prove elder abuse beyond any reasonable doubt. As darkness settled over the beach, Amanda grew impatient with my questions and hesitations about signing the documents. "Mom, we're leaving tomorrow morning. This paperwork has to be finalized tonight or Derek and I will miss our flight." "You're really leaving tomorrow?" I asked. "For good?" "That's what we've been telling you," Derek said with obvious irritation. "We've got a new life waiting in Italy, and frankly, it'll be better for everyone if we make a clean break." "A clean break," I repeated, tasting the words, "after everything we've been through together." "You raised me to be independent," Amanda said with false warmth. "This is just me following through on that teaching. Derek and I deserve to start fresh, somewhere beautiful without old obligations holding us back." Old obligations. Her mother had become an old obligation that interfered with her theft-funded fantasy life. The moment had come. I looked at my daughter across the candlelit table, memorizing her face before everything changed forever. "Amanda, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice shifting from confused to crystal clear. "You forgot something important when you planned all this." Her confident expression flickered slightly. "What are you talking about, Mom?" I smiled, and for the first time in months, it was completely genuine. "You forgot that I'm not actually senile. You forgot that I know exactly what you've been doing. And you forgot that this house was never yours to sell." The color drained from Amanda's face as understanding began to dawn. Derek looked between us, confused, but sensing that something had gone terribly wrong with their plan. "I know about the rental scam," I continued calmly. "I know about the forged power of attorney. I know about the $87,000 you've stolen from my accounts. I know about your plans to put me in a facility in Arizona while you live in Italy on my money." Amanda stood up so quickly that her chair toppled backward. "You can't know any of that. You've been confused for months. You can't even remember what we talked about yesterday." "I remember everything," I said, removing the small recording device from my purse and placing it on the table. Every conversation, every lie, every moment, when you manipulated me into doubting my own mind. Derek's face turned red with rage as he realized they had been outsmarted by the woman they considered a weak elderly victim. "You can't prove anything," he snarled, reaching across the table as if to grab the recorder. "Old ladies imagine all kinds of crazy things." That's when Agent Murphy and his team emerged from their positions around the property, weapons drawn and federal badges clearly visible in the candlelight. "FBI Derek Thompson and Amanda Collins, you're under arrest for elder abuse, mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes against a vulnerable adult." Amanda's shock transformed into fury as handcuffs were placed on her wrists. "This is impossible. She's senile, she can't handle her own affairs." "Mrs. Collins has been working with our financial crimes unit for 2 weeks," Agent Murphy said calmly. "Every conversation you've had with her since then has been recorded with her full knowledge and consent." Derek struggled against the agents restraining him, shouting about crazy old women and family business that had nothing to do with law enforcement. His angry denials only provided additional evidence of his contempt for elder protection laws. As Amanda was led toward the waiting police vehicles, she turned back to look at me with an expression of absolute hatred. "You always were a selfish old witch," she spat. "I should have put you in a home years ago." "Amanda," I called after her, rising from my chair with the dignity I had never actually lost. "You forgot the most important thing of all." She stopped despite the agent's guidance toward the car. "You forgot that the house you've been renting out for a year, the house you told your tenants you owned, the house you claimed to sell, belongs to your grandmother's trust. You never had any legal right to it. Every rental payment you collected was theft. Every document you signed was forgery. And every lie you told Tom and Sarah Phillips made you a federal criminal." The last thing I saw before the police car doors closed was Amanda's face crumpling as she finally understood the full scope of her legal disaster. 6 months after that confrontational dinner at the beach house, I sat in the gallery of the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, watching my daughter face the consequences of her choices. The prosecution's case had been overwhelming from the beginning, built on mountains of documented evidence and Amanda's own recorded confessions. Assistant U.S. Attorney Linda Chen presented the government's case with methodical precision, laying out each crime in chronological order: the forged power of attorney, the systematic theft from my bank accounts, the rental fraud involving the Phillips family, the mail theft, the identity theft, and the planned flight to Italy with stolen funds. "This defendant didn't make a mistake or lose her way," Ms. Chen told the jury during opening statements. "She planned and executed a sophisticated criminal enterprise designed to steal her elderly mother's life savings, while psychologically abusing her victim into compliance." Amanda's defense attorney, Jonathan Walsh, attempted to portray her actions as misguided family assistance rather than criminal behavior. He argued that Amanda had genuinely believed she was helping me manage complex finances during a period of declining mental capacity. But Agent Murphy's investigation had uncovered evidence that completely destroyed that narrative. Bank records showed Amanda's systematic withdrawal of funds beginning just weeks after she gained access to my accounts. Email communications between Amanda and Derek revealed their detailed plans for European travel and luxury purchases, all funded by stolen money. Most damaging of all were the recordings from our final weeks of contact, where Amanda had clearly acknowledged her criminal behavior while expressing no remorse for the harm she was causing. The Phillips family testified as victims, describing how Amanda's rental scam had disrupted their lives and cost them thousands of dollars in deposits and moving expenses. Tom Phillips' quiet dignity and Sarah's obvious distress as she recounted believing they had found their dream home made a powerful impression on the jury. "We trusted her completely," Sarah testified. "She seemed so professional, so caring about the property. When she told us the owner had passed away, we even sent a sympathy card to her office address." The prosecution's financial forensics expert, Dr. Patricia Williams, provided devastating testimony about the scope and sophistication of Amanda's theft. Charts and graphs showed the progression of financial manipulation over 18 months, totaling $137,000 when legal fees and victim costs were included. This wasn't impulsive behavior, Dr. Williams explained to the jury. The defendant created multiple layers of deception, false documentation, and money laundering techniques that indicate extensive planning and criminal sophistication. Derek's trial took place the following week with similar results. His construction company's bankruptcy records revealed extensive gambling debts and poor business decisions that had motivated his participation in Amanda's scheme. His violent threats against me during recorded conversations added assault charges to his financial crimes. But perhaps the most revealing moment came during Amanda's sentencing hearing, when Judge Patricia Wells asked if she wanted to make a statement before receiving her sentence. Amanda stood at the defendant's table looking much older than her 32 years after months in federal custody. Her expensive clothing and perfect styling had been replaced by a standard orange jumpsuit and institutional pallor. "Your Honor, I still believe I was trying to help my mother." She began, her voice steady but cold. She was becoming forgetful and making poor financial decisions. Someone needed to step in before she lost everything to scammers or bad investments. Judge Wells interrupted her with obvious incredulity. "Ms. Collins, are you claiming that stealing over $100,000 from your mother and lying to innocent tenants was protective behavior?" "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," Amanda replied, but her tone suggested she was reciting prepared remarks rather than expressing genuine remorse. "I thought I could manage everything better than she could and pay everything back once Derek's business improved." The judge's expression grew stern as she reviewed the pre-sentencing reports. "Ms. Collins, the evidence shows that you spent stolen funds on luxury travel, designer clothing, and gambling activities. There's no indication you ever intended to repay your mother or help her in any way." When Amanda remained silent, Judge Wells continued with the formal sentencing. "You have been convicted of multiple federal crimes involving the systematic financial abuse of a vulnerable elderly person. Your actions caused significant financial and emotional harm not only to your mother, but to an innocent family who trusted your false representations." The final sentences reflected the seriousness of their crimes and the court's determination to send a clear message about elder abuse. Amanda received 8 years in federal prison, while Derek received 10 years due to his additional violent threats and his leadership role in planning their escape to Europe. Both were ordered to pay full restitution, including compensatory damages and penalties, though the court acknowledged that most of the stolen money had already been spent and would likely never be recovered. As Amanda was led away after sentencing, she turned to look at me one final time. I searched her face for any sign of the loving child she had once been, any hint of remorse or understanding about the pain she had caused. Instead, I saw only anger and self-pity. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters and victim advocates, I made a brief statement about the importance of elder abuse prevention and the need for families to have honest conversations about financial planning and aging. "No parent expects to be victimized by their own child," I said, looking directly into the television cameras. "But when it happens, we have to choose between protecting the criminal or protecting future victims. I chose to protect the innocent." Agent Murphy, who had become not just an investigator but a trusted friend during the prosecution process, walked me to my car through the crowd of media attention. "How are you feeling now that it's over?" he asked. "Sad," I said honestly, but also relieved that justice was served and grateful that people like Tom and Sarah Phillips were protected from further harm. The Phillips family had become an unexpected source of joy during the difficult months of legal proceedings. Tom's construction skills and Sarah's interior design talents had transformed the beach house into something even more beautiful than it had been during my childhood summers. Their children, 4-year-old Emma and 2-year-old Jake, had brought laughter back to rooms that had been empty too long. We had worked out an arrangement that benefited everyone. They remained as tenants at a fair market rate, maintaining the property with the love and care it deserved, while I regained the financial security Amanda had tried to steal. Most importantly, I had found a new kind of family, one based on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation or manipulation. 1 year after Amanda's sentencing, I stood on the deck of my beach house, watching Emma and Jake Phillips chase sandpipers along the water's edge, while their parents prepared a picnic lunch on the sand below. The sound of their laughter mixed with the rhythm of waves and seagulls created a symphony of contentment I hadn't experienced in years. The healing process had been longer and more complex than I initially expected. Beyond recovering financially from Amanda's theft, I had needed to rebuild my confidence in my own judgment and my ability to trust other people. The psychological damage from months of being told I was confused and incompetent had been profound, requiring professional counseling and the patient support of true friends. Dr. Rachel Martinez, the therapist Agent Murphy had recommended, helped me understand that Amanda's manipulation had been textbook psychological abuse, designed to make me doubt my own perceptions and capabilities. Learning that my confusion and self-doubt had been deliberately manufactured rather than natural signs of aging was both liberating and infuriating. "Your instincts were correct all along," Dr. Martinez had told me during one of our early sessions. "Trust in your ability to recognize when something doesn't feel right. That intuition protected you and ultimately saved you from even greater harm." With Dr. Martinez's guidance, I had channeled my anger and hurt into something productive, the Margaret Collins Foundation for Elder Protection, named after my mother and funded by the restitution payments and insurance settlements from Amanda's crimes. The foundation provided legal assistance and counseling services to elderly victims of financial abuse, helping them navigate the complex process of reporting crimes and recovering stolen assets. We also offered educational programs for families about healthy financial planning and recognizing signs of elder manipulation. Harold Brennan had volunteered his legal services to help establish the foundation, working with a team of younger attorneys who specialized in elder law and victim advocacy. Together, we had helped 17 families in our first year, preventing hundreds of thousands of dollars in theft and helping victims rebuild their financial security. "You've turned something terrible into a force for protecting other people," Harold told me during our quarterly foundation board meeting. "Margaret would be proud of the legacy you're building in her name." The foundation's work had connected me with other elder abuse survivors, creating a community of mutual support and shared purpose. Many of these new friends had stories remarkably similar to mine: trusted family members or caregivers who had gradually assumed control of finances while systematically isolating and manipulating their victims. Maria Santos had been victimized by a son-in-law who convinced her daughter that Maria needed residential care, then sold Maria's house and pocketed the proceeds. Robert Chen's nephew had forged documents giving himself power of attorney, then emptied Robert's retirement accounts to fund a failed restaurant venture. Dorothy Williams discovered that her trusted financial advisor had been stealing from multiple elderly clients for over a decade. What struck me most about these stories was the pattern of victims blaming themselves for being too trusting or not smart enough to recognize the deception. During our monthly support group meetings, I found myself repeatedly emphasizing that intelligence and education provided no protection against manipulation by people we loved and trusted. The people who hurt us succeeded because we cared about them, I told our group during one particularly emotional session. They exploited our love, not our weakness. There's no shame in being victims of that kind of betrayal. My relationship with the Phillips family had evolved into something I never expected but desperately needed. Tom and Sarah had become the adult children I wished I had, treating me with genuine respect and affection, while maintaining their own independence and dignity. Emma and Jake called me Grandma Josie and filled my life with the kind of unconditional love I hadn't experienced since Amanda's childhood. Their presence in the beach house had transformed it from a symbol of loss and betrayal into a place of healing and new memories. Emma's artwork decorated the refrigerator where Amanda's school projects had once hung. Jake's toys were scattered across the same floors where Amanda had played with her dolls. The continuity felt both heartbreaking and hopeful. "You saved us too, you know," Sarah told me one evening as we watched the sunset from the deck, while Tom helped the children build an elaborate sand sculpture. "When we thought we were being evicted when Amanda's scam fell apart, we didn't know where we'd go or how we'd afford to start over. You could have forced us to leave, but instead, you made us family." The legal resolution had indeed protected everyone involved. The Phillips family's rent payments now went directly to me at a fair market rate, giving them security and giving me steady income from the property. Amanda's forged rental contracts had been voided, but I had honored the family's legitimate expectations by offering them a proper lease at terms they could afford. Federal victim compensation programs had reimbursed most of my financial losses, while Amanda and Derek's frozen assets covered additional damages and legal costs. More importantly, the criminal convictions meant their theft would be part of permanent federal records, preventing them from victimizing other elderly people in the future. I had received one letter from Amanda during her first year in prison, a brief note claiming she still believed she had been trying to help me and asking if I would visit her or contribute money to her commissary account. I had discussed the letter with Dr. Martinez, who helped me understand that Amanda's continued lack of remorse was consistent with the personality traits that had enabled her crimes in the first place. I wrote back once, sending a short response that I hoped would provide clarity for both of us. "Amanda, I will always love the child you were, but I cannot support or enable the adult you chose to become. Your actions caused real harm to innocent people, and accepting responsibility for that harm is the first step toward genuine rehabilitation. I hope you find peace and wisdom during your incarceration, but my healing requires maintaining distance from people who hurt me deliberately." I never heard from her again, and I found that my emotional recovery progressed more quickly once I stopped hoping for apologies or explanations that would never come. The Foundation's work had given me a sense of purpose I hadn't anticipated during retirement. Instead of spending my later years managing decline and loss, I was actively fighting injustice and helping people rebuild their lives after devastating betrayals. The work was emotionally challenging but deeply meaningful. Agent Murphy had remained a friend and occasional consultant to the Foundation, helping us understand how to recognize and report financial crimes effectively. His expertise had been invaluable in developing our educational programs and victim advocacy protocols. "You've become quite the expert on elder financial protection," he told me with a smile during one of our consultation meetings. "Have you ever considered teaching these concepts formally?" That suggestion led to my current project developing a curriculum for community colleges and senior centers about financial self-protection and family communication around aging issues. The course covered practical topics like power of attorney documents, trust management, and estate planning, but it also addressed the psychological aspects of maintaining independence and recognizing manipulation. The goal isn't to make people paranoid about their families. I explained to administrators at Pasadena Community College who were considering adding my course to their continuing education program. It's to help them maintain healthy boundaries and make informed decisions about who they trust with their financial security. My first class was scheduled to begin in the fall with enrollment already exceeding expectations. Many of the students were people like I had been, financially comfortable retirees who wanted to maintain independence while planning appropriately for potential future needs. But perhaps the most meaningful aspect of my recovery had been the simple pleasure of ordinary days, filled with genuine relationships and peaceful activities. Mornings spent reading on my deck, afternoons helping Jake and Emma with art projects, evenings cooking dinner with Sarah, while Tom repaired whatever the children had enthusiastically broken that day. These moments reminded me that happiness didn't require complexity or drama. Sometimes the greatest victory was simply the ability to trust again to care about people without constantly analyzing their motives to believe in the basic goodness of human connection. As I watched Emma and Jake race back from the beach with their collection of shells and smooth stones, I thought about the life lesson I would want to share with anyone who had survived similar betrayal. Love should enhance your life, not diminish it. Real family, whether biological or chosen, supports your independence rather than undermining it. Trust can be rebuilt, but it should be earned through consistent actions, rather than demanded through guilt or obligation. Most importantly, surviving victimization doesn't require forgiveness of people who remain dangerous or unrepentant. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is protect ourselves and others from people who have proved they will cause harm when given the opportunity. "Grandma Josie, look what we found," Emma called out, running toward me with her bucket full of ocean treasures. "Show me everything," I said, settling into my favorite deck chair as both children climbed onto my lap with sandy hands and excited voices. This was what real family felt like. People who celebrated your presence, respected your wisdom, and added joy to your daily life, rather than creating stress and doubt. Amanda had tried to steal my financial security, but she had never understood that my true wealth had always been the capacity for meaningful relationships built on mutual respect and genuine affection. I had found that wealth again in the most unexpected way, with people who had also been victims of Amanda's lies, but who had chosen healing and hope rather than bitterness and isolation. As the sun set over the Pacific painting, the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have made my mother smile, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment of peace and purpose. Have you ever found yourself questioning your own judgment when someone you trusted started making you feel confused or incompetent? How do you think families can have honest conversations about aging and financial planning without creating opportunities for manipulation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with anyone who might benefit from understanding how financial elder abuse happens and how it can be prevented. Your support helps us continue creating content that protects vulnerable people and celebrates the power of resilience and justice. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of ordinary people overcoming extraordinary challenges. And remember that seeking help when something feels wrong isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom and strength. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting survivors of elder abuse everywhere. May you always trust your instincts, value your independence, and surround yourself with people who celebrate your worth rather than diminishing it. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.